Hi, this is Paul from Meter Coffee. I just wanted to do a quick video regarding the maintenance and the cleaning of your 1Zpresso grinders. I do still occasionally get questions, customers or people in general asking about how often they should clean the grinders and really what they should use to clean the grinders. So I want to kind of address a little bit about that in this video. Each of the grinders are a little bit different, as you can see here. I don't have any of the K grinders, but I've got an adjustment dial from the top of one of the K grinders just to kind of point out a few things about that. Some of the materials are different for each of the grinder also, and some of them have slightly different parts that you need to kind of look at and address, and I'll explain that also. For instance, these two, the JX and the JX Pro, have got a little bit of a difference there. Where obviously you've got a top ring on the JX Pro that you need to take off and clean, and you don't have that on the JX. So there's that. And then also something like these two, the Q2 and the X Pro, they've got a slightly different material for the hand grip, as you can see there. So those are a little bit different, and how you would clean them is obviously going to be a little bit different also. And again, obviously to point out the obvious thing with the JX and the JX Pro and the other grinders, the X Pro, the Q2, and I think that the J Max also have got this material, and these grinders have this kind of rubber grip. So again, just to point that out. The K series grinders have got this that you would need to take off, as opposed to something like a top ring on the JX. And there is a few things that you need to pay attention to with these grinders and clean, like in between the kind of threads where the adjustment dial opens and closes when you turn the adjustment dial. Obviously the threads around where it screws onto the body, you're going to need to kind of clean inside there to stop any kind of coffee particles getting in there, because sometimes when they get in there, they can make it a little bit difficult to actually get that off, surprisingly. But the same for this part in here. You want to kind of pay attention to inside that and kind of clean. And again, in this part, in the bottom here, in there where you can see where it screws on to the grinder. So you want to kind of pay a little bit of attention to that inside there also, so you don't have any coffee particles in there. The brush that you get with each of these grinders is a double-sided brush. You've got kind of a harder side there, and that's good for getting in between, obviously, you know, more difficult areas to clean inside, or a little bit more stubborn kind of coffee particles that won't come off. The softer brush, I tend to use this for the burrs, with a combination of other things like tissue and maybe even, you know, a toothpick can sometimes help, and I'll speak about that a little bit later on. But that's usually enough to clean most of the things that you're going to want to clean with your grinder. Some of the 1Zpresso grinders have obviously got this magnetic catch cup, and as you can see around the magnets itself, you get a kind of a slight build-up of coffee particles in the kind of space where the magnet sits into the body, and it's the same on the actual grinder itself. You can kind of see where you've got a little bit of a build-up around the edges there. Now I would recommend that you clean that, and I don't think it's going to really impact how strong the magnets are holding the catch cup onto the grinder, but again, I think it's worth cleaning that out. And if you want to see this one in particular, that's a little bit kind of dirty, it's got a bit in there, but just to show you, you know, your brush might not always be strong enough to get in there, so you're going to need something a little bit stronger to get in there. Kind of rubbing it with a bit of tissue usually does the job, and just kind of move it in there, and I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. I do highly recommend that you don't put water at all inside the grinder, and especially anywhere near the burrs. I do also kind of recommend that you don't use any kind of water drop technique for your beans. That works for retention, and I've tried it a couple of times myself, but I really don't want water anywhere near my burrs for any reason whatsoever, and I'll just put up with the retention. And it's something I just work into my daily routine of kind of preparing my coffee. I don't care if there's like a half a gram of coffee in there. I just use the brush and I brush it out, and that's me done. I don't want to put anything on the burrs that potentially can lead to spotting or rust in the future. I just don't think it's worth it, and that's just me personally. If you want to do that, then that's up to you, but you do it at your own risk. And I do think over time these burrs will rust because of that. And I've seen also the inside of grinders that I've had from customers where they've used that technique alongside darker roasted coffee, and there's a really big buildup of like gunk inside the walls of the coffee grinder itself, and it's really difficult to get off. And the only way you can do that is to get an abrasive cloth and kind of shimmy it one end, hold one end and hold the other end, and kind of shimmy it to clean out the chamber on each side. And it's a bit of a pain, to be honest, and I just think it's not really necessary to do that. I don't really, as a rule, generally use really dark roasted coffee because there's going to be a lot of oil on that, and you get a real oil build-up in there, and it's just nasty, and I don't really do it myself. But you know, it's popular, people do it, but that's just me personally. I don't do that. But again, if you do get a build-up of really sort of gunk in there and oil and coffee particles that are a bit stubborn, you're going to have to clean that off. And I get a cloth, like I say, and I kind of shimmy it backwards and forwards through the body of that, and that generally gets it off there, but it's a bit more work, to be honest. When I'm actually cleaning the body of the grinder and the inside of the grinder, I've got this kind of cloth that I use. Now this is a kind of a cloth that you get for cars, for cleaning windows and the body of cars, and it's a very kind of soft cloth. I've even got an anti-static cloth somewhere that I kind of got some idea into my mind that I was going to use that on the grinder, and maybe that would help for retention. What I do is I kind of use this kind of cloth on the body, and obviously on the inside there like that. And occasionally what I do, if I need to really clean the body, I'll put a tiny bit of water on the corner of this, and I'll make sure it's absolutely, you know, not wet, but just a little bit damp, and I'll use that to kind of rub the body like that and around the plastic like this, or the rubber, sorry. And then I'll dry it. I'll make sure it's absolutely 100% dry and no part of that's wet. I don't do that anywhere inside the grinder where the burrs are going to be situated. Maybe, you know, around where the threads are here, I'll kind of do that also if there's anything stubborn. But generally I'll use a little bit of tissue for that. Just some rolled up tissue, and I'll make it into like a point, and I'll use that on the inside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean one of my grinders that I've been using as a demonstration grinder, and it's pretty dirty right now, and I've been using the grinder just to show people how the grinder operates and the grind size and things for different types of beans. So it needs cleaning, and I'm going to use that as a really good example to show you how to clean a grinder that's pretty dirty. So I'll do that now, and you can see exactly how I clean my grinders. Okay, so I'm going to use this grinder as a reference for cleaning, and as you can see, it's kind of got, you know, some hand marks, hand prints on the body, so they need cleaning up. These kind of detail areas here can get a little bit kind of dirty as well over time, so they'll kind of need cleaning up. The top, as you can see, it's pretty kind of dirty in there, coffee grinds. But I've been using this grinder quite a lot for demonstration, just to kind of show people how the grinder works if they ask. So it's kind of a demo model, and I've specifically left this for a while to let it get dirty so you can kind of see. I probably cleaned this grinder about 4 weeks ago. Now I like to clean my grinders about once every 2 weeks. I don't think it's really necessary unless you're using really dark beans that are a little bit oily to clean it more than that. You can if you want. I mean, it's up to you really. Usually a good kind of once over with the soft brush. The cleaning brush is enough for general use. But I would suggest that maybe, you know, once every 2 weeks, take it apart and clean it properly and give it a good sort of clean inside. You can see I've intentionally left those in there just to kind of show you, you know, what's going on. Okay, you can see around the outside of the bottom of the burrs here where there will be a build-up of coffee particles, and again that's mostly due to using dark roasted beans. The oil kind of makes them stick more than like normal medium or light roasted beans around that area, and again I've left that intentionally just to kind of show people that's kind of like a worst case scenario. That's quite dirty. But I'll show you how quick that is just to clean that off anyway without using any kind of cleaning fluids or even water. It's really easy. So I'm going to dismantle the grinder now and kind of show the individual parts and how I go about cleaning them. So I'll do that now, yeah. I thought I'd kind of take this opportunity to also show you what I do if your outer burrs are really stuck. Over time, your outer burrs can get really difficult to get off, and it is quite a chore to kind of get them loosened. There is certain things that I use, or you know, that does work quite well. But the thing that I found works the best is one of these. It's what you call a belt wrench or a strap wrench, and these work very well for this. It's got a rubber belt there, a rubber band that gives it a lot of kind of grip, and this handle part here can really help you to get a good grip on that. These are very cheap and you can find them in a lot of places and not too difficult to get a hold of, and I know it is, like, you know, it is a slight kind of cost. This cost me maybe about I don't know, $4. They're very cheap, but it is worth investing in something like this because these can be a bit difficult to get off, and this is something that does work very well. I'll show you how this works right now. It's got a rubber strap on there, and I'll put that on like so and twist it. It can still be quite difficult sometimes depending. Your burrs can get really tight, but I find this really works, and this particular one was really tight, and that's what made me get this. I just couldn't get it off with anything else. I tried all sorts, but it just wouldn't come off. Your burrs are going to turn looking down into the hopper here. It's going to turn anti-clockwise to take them off, and I'll kind of show you. Push this up a little bit so you can see where your burrs actually fit onto the body, so you've got a good visual kind of view of that, and then put your strap on, pardon the expression, like that, so it covers that, and then pull it tight like so, and at that point get your handle, hold on to the strap like this, and it's this part that's doing all the work. Obviously you need to take it the right way, so I'm going to turn that round, and that's it. It kind of pushes that off like that. Yours might be really tight, but that's how I do it, and it does come off. So that's something that I just wanted to share with you, just to kind of show you how I get them off if they're really tight. Okay, take your outer burrs off, like so. Okay, and you can see mine are really dirty inside. So you do want to take these out, and like I say, these haven't been cleaned for about a month, and that's what yours might look like if you don't clean them. You can see in there where the outer burrs are kind of quite messy. So that's your grinder dismantled. So what I like to do first is just to go over, obviously, with the brush, with the cleaning brush, and just get out most of the obvious bits of coffee. So I just kind of brush that out with the brush, like so. Go around the inside where the threads are. I'll make a note to get as much out of as possible, because these are what actually, if the coffee gets in there, like you can see there, that's what's stopping your burrs coming off. And you can see how the coffee particles get inside there, and that's why your burrs get stuck. So you can see like that there, there's quite a bit of coffee particles in there. So you want to try and get them out as best you can, and then I'll go over this a little bit better afterwards. Obviously, like these ones here, you can see inside there's a lot of little coffee particles in there that you want to clean out, and the same in there in the top. Another thing to pay attention to is the burr shaft around this area here. You want to kind of clean in there as well. But like I said earlier, in here you can see inside the threads for your outer burrs, where there's a lot of coffee particles in there, and that's what's making it stick. So clean that properly. Take the spring out also if you can. Sometimes that doesn't want to come out, but there's a bearing shaft in there, or a bearing disc that kind of covers that. So if you can get your spring off, then take that out also. If you can't, don't worry about it, just clean around it. Again, that's stopping the coffee particles getting into where your bearings are. So maybe you don't need to take that off if you don't want to, but if you can, it's worth checking that. Your burrs, you can see where they're really dirty, and again around this area, that just comes off with your finger. You can clean that off with your fingers if you want in there. Inside, you can see also in there, where that fits onto the bearing, onto the burr shaft, you can kind of see there's some bits of coffee particles in there, so you might want to run a little bit of tissue through there to clean that out. But anyway, just quickly go over this with your brush, and you can see straight away the brush does a pretty good job. It's going to get most of these coffee particles off here, and you don't really need to sort of do too much for that. And you can see right away there might be a couple of little parts left in there, but one or two over with your brush, and that's pretty clean there. Now you can see that's good. There's nothing stuck in between the blades in there. Sometimes if you get anything, it'll get kind of stuck in the corners here. What I do with that, if that happens, is I'll get a piece of paper, like a tissue or something, and then I'll fold the corner up like so, and kind of make something like this, and that there can get into these little corners here and push things out. And again, if it's still not coming out, if you're using really kind of dark roasted beans with a lot of oil and it gets stuck in there and it's a bit difficult to get out, you can also use something like a toothpick, and that'll kind of take that out, and it's not too hard that it's going to affect your blades on here. So you can do that as well. That's pretty good. These bits here, obviously they get a little bit dirty, so again, just kind of run a little bit of a tissue around that, and that's clean. Maybe in the middle like so, and then yep, so that's ready, that's good. The same with this. You can see underneath where the coffee particles get into there. So again, just run a bit of cloth around that, or tissue, and you can see there that's good enough, that's clean. Again, in this little hole in here, you can see there's some particles in there. So just push that through like so, and that'll get rid of anything that's stuck in there. And again, that's a couple of seconds and that's clean. Your catch cup, you can see you get like a bit of coffee particles in there. So just get your brush and just run that around like so. And That's good enough like that, that's clean. Now these parts here, I'll clean those with a cloth in a minute after I've gotten the rest. Same with this, but we'll just kind of clean out what we can get out of this in there like that. The brush is good enough to get through each side and get to any kind of coffee particles that's in there. And again, we're not using cloths here, we're not using any kind of water, it's simply just your cleaning brush is good enough to do this. If you want to use the harder brush on this side, again, that'll get into some other areas that might be a little bit tricky for the softer side of the brush. But you can see there where it's pushing out those coffee particles that got stuck in the threads, and that's it. They're pretty clean there now, and that's really not a lot of effort to get those out, and that's looking quite clean already. From this side again, using the hard side of the brush to get into these tricky areas, and just dab it, kind of push it like this and dab it like that. If you've got one of those kind of cleaning pumps that you get with some of the other 1Zpresso grinders, like the J Max, you can push that in and kind of pump it, and that'll get rid of some coffee particles. But if you don't have one of those, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that there, you can see, is pretty clean. The threads are clean there. Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough for me. I'll go over that again with a soft brush in a minute and just get the rest of it out there. But that's okay right now. Your outer burrs, same thing. Just go over the threads. You can see there, well, that's a little bit tricky to get out, and we'll go over that with a cloth, I think, just to get rid of that. But mostly, this brush is all you need to clean it. You can see the inside of these outer burrs are pretty clean, and they don't really need any special attention, apart from this part here. We'll go over that in a second. But again, just go over it with your brush, get out what you can, like that. A little bit more effort to these ones that's not really coming out. Go over them, like so. Okay. Another thing I like to use is one of these. These are the things that you sometimes get that tie things. They've got the little wire inside. And if you kind of straighten these out and you use this end bit here, it's kind of flat and it fits in really nicely into these parts on the burrs, and you can kind of get in like that, and it kind of fits in between them, and it can get out any piece of stubborn coffee particles. Also, with these being kind of plastic, they don't rub against your burrs, the blades on the burrs, so they don't actually, they don't kind of harm them in any way. And you kind of get those stubborn parts out really quite easily. So they're a good thing to have lying around if you really need something a little bit to get in between those blades. For the body of the grinder, you can kind of see it's a little bit got some kind of fingerprints on and things like that. Now, what I was saying about water, I don't normally like to use water, but what I will do on the outside sometimes, if it really needs a clean, is I'll get a little bit of water on a soft cloth, like so, just a tiny bit, so it's not soaking, it's just, slightly damp, and I'll go over those like that quickly, and that will get in between any kind of stubborn parts there, and you can see that's kind of cleaning that up really quickly and nicely there. So you can kind of go over those quick, and again, any part of the part that you hold, the bottom. And at that point, if I've done that and I've used the towel, I'll make sure it's completely dry, like that. Again, I don't use a wet inside there, I'll just put the towel in like that, and I'll run that around like that. And that's clean, that's okay. Same with the body. I get a little bit of water, especially for this rubber hand grip here. Sometimes I can get, don't know if you can see that, I'll get a little bit of dirt in between the lettering on there, and it's not so easy to get that out. So I'll do the same thing with that. Get a little bit of water, just slightly damp. That's not really, you can see if I squeeze that, I'll do that again. If I squeeze that, you can see there's no real water coming out of that, it's just slightly damp. And I'll run that around like this, and that gets in between the letters on the grip. And the same, I'll just kind of run that around like so, in between there. And that's enough to clean that up quite well. And that's it. And the same with the body part. If there's any parts around here, you can kind of give that a little touch up around there. And that's okay. And then again, dry it off so it's not wet. And that's looking good. That's okay. Right, now, just inside these parts here, again with your dry part of the towel, you can either run that around there if you want to, just inside where the threads are, and that brings that up nice and clean. And the same with these parts here. You might want to hold onto your burr shaft with this hand, and you can see there's a little bit of stubborn coffee particles there, so I'll just give that a little bit of a wipe, that's okay. And then the rest of it, just like that. Okay, there, that's nice and clean, there's nothing wrong with that. Same on this side, pretty much the same thing, just get into where your threads are and run your cloth around there. And again, I'll say this one more time, just to remind you that if you get any coffee particles in these threads here, that's kind of why your burrs are getting stuck. So I'll give that a little bit of attention. This part where your spring is, whoops, there's my spring popped out, I couldn't get that out before. Now, you can see underneath there, you see where your coffee particles are getting in there. So, again, with your brush, you can take that off, and then give that once over with your brush again. I couldn't actually get that off before, it was on a little bit tight, but that's come off. This part here, give that another little brush up, make sure that's nice and clean. Use your cloth. There, nice. When you put this back on, make sure it goes on the correct way. So it's this part with the raised edge that's going face down, like so. So that's on correct. And then your spring, just give it a little clean up as well. Maybe get your cloth through like this, and just get rid of any coffee particles on that. The spring, it doesn't matter which way that goes on. It's not like the JX Pro where there's a fatter hole on one side and a thinner hole on the other. It just fits on like that. At that point, what I will do, just to get rid of any coffee particles that could be left over in the chamber, is I'll run my cloth through like that. This is what I was saying before about kind of shimmying it like this, like that. So I'll run that through on both sides. You can do that with tissue also, it doesn't have to be cloth. Tissue is good enough to get through there. You can see where it's covering the whole of the inside of that. So a cloth, run that through like that, and that's it. Basically, that's your grinder. It's all clean, and that's all you have to do. Take you 10 minutes. Really, you don't need anything special. You don't need water. You don't need any kind of cleaning fluids or anything like that. Especially, like I say, keep any water away from your burrs. Stainless steel burrs are okay, but they've got really small little imperfections on the surface of the burrs, and if water gets into that over time, it will make them go rusty, or you'll get a thing called spotting, where it goes kind of like a dull spot colour on these. If you want to make your burrs last longer, like, look after them. Like you say, you don't need water or anything special on there, and that's it. That's basically it. That's how I clean my grinder. For the outer burrs, same thing. On the outside here, where you can see it's a little bit in between the threads there. Very easy. Just clean those up with your dry towel. It's worth paying attention to that part there. It'll help you if your burrs are a little bit stubborn. And like so. And that's good there. Okay. Again, for these parts here where it's a little bit grubby from your hands, give that a little bit of a rub, like so. Okay, it's good. And that's it. Nice. Last part is this bit around here where you can see it's really kind of dirty there. So just get your tissue or a cloth, whatever you want to do. Find a tissue is enough for this, and just clean it out. Like that. There, it's good. You can see how much kind of dirt is coming out of the corners on the edge of these burrs where you can't really get in. Use your fingernail if you can, and then just scrape around the inside there. That's it. See, like that. It's a little bit extra there that you just couldn't get with the paper. But like I say, you just pay a little bit of attention, and that's it. Basically, it's clean. Okay, good. That's it. Finished. It's your burrs clean. One last thing before I forget also, you can actually take this off the clear plastic lid. You just screw it counterclockwise, and then you can take this off. Because you can actually replace these if they get all marked up and stuff. But yeah, just if you want to, just quickly take that off and give that a little bit of a rub also with a cloth. These will get marked over time, but if yours is a little bit grubby or dirty, just give it a little wipe like that. And that's it. It's looking good. And then just put it back on like this. Yeah. You disc on, and then when it's tight like that, and then just turn it a little bit, and that'll help tighten it up. There. So that's good. And that's the grinder back together. Totally clean. Doesn't take 10 minutes to do that. So if you like that, please subscribe and like the video, and if you want to know anything else, if you've got any questions or anything, then just leave a comment down below, and I'm always happy to answer any questions. So thanks for watching and have a great day.